Big breaking story that we're tracking this Friday morning. 7 security personnel have lost their lives in the firing that is still raging inside an army camp in the Uri sector in Jammu and Kashmir's Baramulla area. Reports suggest that it could have been a suicide attack. Sketchy details emerging at this point in time. Baramulla, remember, goes to vote in the third phase of elections in the valley on the 9th of December. The Prime Minister is also going to be in Srinagar on Sunday, and the attack comes despite security being at an all-time high in the valley. The first 2 phases recorded a record 71% voter turnout. The attack is being seen as an attempt to spread panic ahead of the next phase of elections. I'm joined at this point in time by my colleagues Shiv Arur and Savants. Shiv, I'd like to come to you first. The latest that you're getting to us is that 5 army men, 2 Jammu and Kashmir policemen have been killed, and it is suspected to be a suicide attack.
That is correct, Rishika. The precise technique that's been used by the terrorists is still sketchy right now. But given that in the last 2 instances, the suicide attack technique was spotted, it is being suspected that a suicide attack modus operandi may have been used. But at this point of time, it is a gun battle. It's a conventional gun battle that's on right now, as we're reporting in at least 2 locations, apparently in the Uri camp, including, and Savants will be giving us more details on the second part of it, where a gun position has apparently been attacked, which is where the casualties, have been wreaked. It demonstrates that targets are being chosen extremely effectively. And the important thing to note right now, Rishika, is that 7 security personnel have been killed, 2 terrorists have been killed. It is not known specifically how many more terrorists. There are at least 2 more terrorists who are carrying on this operation at this point of time. The fact that they infiltrated an army camp and didn't, proceed to a civilian area obviously demonstrates, like you rightly pointed out, Baramulla is going to be up for elections in just a couple of days in the next phase. So a signal being sent out. Obviously a reaction also to the very healthy turnout of voters in other parts of Jammu.
Absolutely.
Remember, in just a couple of days from now, Narendra Modi will be visiting the valley, where he will be beginning his campaign for the state as well for the 4th phase. So at this point of time, a signal being sent out, but this already is being classified as a major terrorist strike.
Well, it is a major terrorist strike, Shiv, no doubt. Heavy firing is still underway. Editor Strategic Affairs Savants is also with us. Take us through the latest that you're hearing from your sources.
The terrorists carefully chose a soft target. They've targeted a gun position which is relatively lesser protected than the direct military camp. They've targeted the army at 2 different locations. It's an audacious attack on the security forces, hitting them right where it hurts, very close to the line of control. 2 terrorists have been gunned down, but at least, as Shiv was telling us, at least 2 to 3 more terrorists are still out there who are targeting the police and the army, and they're firing with military precision, is what my sources in Uri are telling me, which goes on to indicate that these terrorists have undergone very precise training of how to engage with security forces.
Right.
1 terrorist may have escaped or fled towards not another gun position. It's actually a location between a gun position and the ammunition depot, and that is the big fear. If he's carrying explosives, if he reaches the ammunition depot, that would be extremely dangerous. So this area has been cordoned off both by the army, the special forces and the police, and there's a fierce gun battle on even as we speak.
Right, Gaurav, was there any specific intelligence that an attack of this nature could perhaps take place, given the fact that Baramulla is a sensitive area and it is going to polls on the 9th?
There was a specific intelligence alert about high-profile military target areas being targeted and civilian crowds being targeted. Pakistan is desperate to ensure that elections are not smooth in Jammu and Kashmir, because that will, completely dismantle the Pakistan bogey on Jammu and Kashmir. And that is why Pakistan has been using very desperate means, including sending terrorists to 14,000 feet altitude. Steve and I were doing that report just a couple of days ago. And that's when our sources told us that the terrorists are planning a major audacious attack. In fact, what sources are warning is of multiple attacks taking place in areas that are going to polls by separate terrorist teams. Security has been tight in Jammu and Kashmir, but then in a suicide attack, it's the terrorist who has the initiative. And unfortunately, 5 lives, 5 army personnel and 2 police personnel have lost their lives in battling these terrorists in an operation that is still underway.
Gaurav, that's a very important point that you're making there, that intelligence reports are in fact warning of multiple attacks on military and civilian targets before the next phase of the Jammu and Kashmir elections. Gaurav, stay on with us. A whole host of political reactions coming into this big development story. Let's listen in.
हम लोग तो खुद ही चुनाव को समय सुन रहे थे 56 इंच का सीना, एक जवान मरेंगे तो उनके 10 जवान इतनी हर सीना भी कम हो गया और जवान भी मरते जा रहे हैं। हमारे विदेश में बहुत कमजोर है और कहीं न
All right, reactions coming in from Parliament there. Gaurav Savant is still live with us. Gaurav, firing is underway for terrorists in the army camp and 2 of them have been gunned down. Is there any details at all that you have at this point in time about the nature of injuries that other army personnel and jawans have in fact sustained?
Just now this operation is going on in a heavily wooded area. These terrorists, after attacking the gun position, it's a light artillery gun position, field artillery gun position. After attacking soldiers there, they then dispersed and fled to 2 different locations, and that is where they were trying to engage security forces. And this is a standard procedure that terrorists adopt. After the initial burst, they split up and try to maximize the damage. This is exactly what they had done in the earlier attack also south of Pir Panjal in the Samba sector last year. And this is exactly what these terrorists appear to have done this time. Unfortunately, there's no clarity on the number of terrorists, whether it's 2, whether it's 4, or could even be more than 4. And just now the effort is on just to contain them, engage them and bring them down before more casualties are inflicted on security forces. So that is what our sources are telling us, that they've cordoned off these terrorists to ensure they don't spread out more, and then they'll begin closing in. They're open to the idea of using whatever weapons are required to bring them down.
Right, Gaurav, just to put these developments in perspective, there were 2 infiltration bids previously in Arnya and Naugam that were in fact successfully foiled. But this time, terrorists clearly, attacking what you've been also calling a soft target.
There's been a concerted effort by Pakistan-sponsored terrorists, and from what our sources tell us, that this is the Pakistan state also involved in pushing in infiltrators to desperately see that these crucial elections in Jammu and Kashmir do not pass off without an event. And after the first 2 phases had recorded 71% voter turnout, terrorists were desperate, and that is where intelligence agencies warned of the next 3 phases. Not just military targets, high-profile targets, big politicians being attacked, but also military areas being targeted, and that is exactly what terrorists appear to have done in this phase.
Well, 2 phases of elections in Jammu and Kashmir are over, 3 phases yet to go, and as Gaurav Savant's been pointing out, the intelligence warns of multiple attacks on not just military but also civilian targets before the next phase of elections. Gaurav, clearly it appears that the separatists and terrorists at this point in time completely rattled by the high voter turnout that the previous 2 phases of elections have seen in Jammu and Kashmir.
And that is the message that Pakistan does not want the world to know, that elections in Jammu and Kashmir pass off without an event. That is desperately why they want to ensure that the world sees this as a trouble spot. And the infiltration attempt that took place in Naugam is indicative of Pakistan's desperation. The terrorists who were killed in that Naugam encounter had military-grade weapons. They had the latest high-altitude clothing, which a terror organization on its own cannot acquire, which is only provided to them by security forces. And the manner in which they were engaging the security forces for over 2 days is indicative of the kind of training those terrorists have received.
Right. Also, Gaurav, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to be visiting Srinagar this Sunday. And at the same time, news is also coming in that the army chief is likely to meet the Prime Minister to brief him on the security conditions in Jammu and Kashmir.
That's right. Prime Minister has been carrying out a high-profile campaign in Jammu and Kashmir. This is also an election where his party, the BJP, is trying to make inroads north of Pir Panjal in the Kashmir area. They have launched a Mission 44+. Now, in all of this, if these elections had passed off without an event, it would have been a major setback, not just for the separatists, but also their paymasters in Pakistan, for the terrorists who've been targeting Kashmir. Lashkar-e-Taiba's Hafiz Mohammed Saeed has been ranting about Kashmir. In fact, just yesterday, when the Jihad Express reached Lahore, these jihadis in Pakistan were talking about waging a jihad against India non-stop. So, all of this, if you just connect the dots, it adds up to Pakistan's attempt to target Jammu and Kashmir and elections in Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, absolutely. This is definitely an attempt to target elections in Jammu and Kashmir. Just to put, Gaurav, stay on with us. We'd just like to bring our viewers up to speed. The latest that we're getting in on this big developing story this Friday morning is that it is suspected to be a deadly suicide attack which has in fact claimed the lives of 7 security personnel, 5 army men and 2 Jammu and Kashmir policemen have reportedly lost their lives in this terror strike at an army camp in the Uri area of the Baramulla district. Baramulla, remember, goes to polls on the 9th of December in the 3rd phase of polling in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also, to be making a visit to Srinagar on Sunday. The BJP, remember, has run a very high-pitched election campaign this time around in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So clearly putting all of these things into perspective, there were 2 successful terror bids that were in fact foiled, infiltration bids that were foiled in the Arnia and the Nagaum sector earlier. But clearly, as Gaurav Savants has been pointing out to us, at this time the terrorists have in fact targeted a soft position. Terrorists have targeted a soft position at an artillery gun position, in fact, and the military intelligence at this point in time is also sent out a warning of multiple terror attacks. Intelligence sources are confirming to Headlines today that there could be multiple attacks, not just on military positions like the one we're seeing in Uri at this point in time, but also civilian targets before the next phase of the Jammu and Kashmir elections. The latest that is coming in is that it is a field ordnance camp where this attack has in fact taken place. There is a lot of ammunition that is in fact at this camp where a fierce gun battle is still underway. The reports of a fire breaking out from the camp are also coming in. Fire tenders are not able to go in as the gunfire is still on. This is really the big developing story that we're getting at this point in time. Also joining me live at this point in time is my colleague Shuja ul Haq. Shuja, the latest that we're getting from Uri is that there is a fire that has in fact broken out at the camp, and the situation is really critical given the fact that you're reporting that there is a lot of ammunition that is in fact kept in this camp. Take us through the latest.
Well, that's right. In fact, this is a field ordnance and artillery camp of the Indian Army posted at this line of control brigade. What we are learning is that there has been a report of fire emanating from the camp, and that's why fire tenders were called in, but they're not been able to get into the camp because of the firing, indiscriminate firing that is still happening inside. But the worrying thing is that there is a lot of arms and ammunition that is deposited here, and if it is what we are preempting, but it could be a very, very bad news at this moment. But so far, the only thing that we are confirming here is that there is a report of fire emanating from the camp, and fire tenders are there, but they're not being able to do their jobs as the firing is still on. We're learning that 2 militants could possibly be killed in this operation so far, but there is a possibility of more militants being present there who are firing continuously. Policemen, at least 2 have lost their lives and 2 more are injured. We're getting to know at least 3 army personnel are confirmed killed. There are injuries to many, and there could be more in terms of death toll. But so far, very, very tricky situation here. All the top officials and the officers of this brigade are engaged at this point of time to ensure that this operation goes on and the militants are eliminated as soon as possible. But very, very grim situation right now in Uri.
Well, grim situation that is being reported from ground zero in Uri also. Shuja, this is a security nightmare given the fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to be visiting Srinagar this Sunday, and the fact that the Baramulla district where this attack is in fact taking place and that heavy gun battle is underway goes to polls on the 9th.
That's right. In fact, we've been reporting since yesterday only. There have been heightened intelligence inputs in terms of the fact that there could be possible attacks like these that could happen ahead of Prime Minister's visit. We were reporting about it yesterday also. There was an alert sounded in Srinagar city. Various new checkposts were set up at various places. But there was a general alert also that militants could target any place, particularly soft targets like this one, which is a field ordnance, camp. It's normally used for artillery.
Right.
But the fact that it is very, close line of control also gives us, also is suspicious of the fact that this could be a fresh infiltration bid as well. And after the infiltration, the plan might have been to enter into the army camp and, create this sort of a suicide situation.
Well, absolutely. Whether it is a suicide attack or not is yet to be ascertained, but there is a correction in the number of casualties that is coming in. Remember, this is the developing story. Gunfire is still underway. A fire has also been reported from that army camp. Sketchy details are still emerging, but the correct figures that we're getting, the latest that we're getting, is that one army officer, 2 army jawans and 2 Jammu and Kashmir police personnel have reportedly so far lost their lives. That makes it a total of 5 security personnel who have in fact lost their life in that fierce gun battle that is underway. 2 terrorists have also been killed, and all the casualties so far that have been reported are from the quick reaction team that had been deployed to in fact fight with the terrorists who launched that attack. Whether this is a suicide bid or not, of course, remains to be seen. Sketchy details emerging at this point in time. The latest that we're getting is that a fierce gun battle is still underway at the army camp in the Uri sector of the Baramulla district that goes to polls on the 9th of December. We're going to continue to track developments and get you all the latest from this big developing story right here on Headlines Today. Well, it's the big story that we're tracking this morning. 7 security personnel have been killed in the firing that is still raging inside an army camp in the Uri sector in Kashmir's Baramulla area. Reports suggest that it could have been a suicide attack. There is no confirmation on that yet. Baramulla, remember, goes to vote in the 3rd phase of elections in the valley on the 9th of December. The Prime Minister is also going to be in Srinagar on Sunday, and the attack comes despite security being at an all-time high in the valley. The first 2 phases of voting in the state of Jammu and Kashmir recorded a voter turnout of almost 71%, and the attack is being seen as an attempt to spread panic ahead of the next phase of elections. Well, this is the latest that is in fact coming in. The update that is in fact coming in from the army camp is that it is a field ordnance camp. There is a lot of ammunition that is in fact stored in this particular camp. Reports of a fire breaking out from the camp are also coming in, and fire tenders are not being able to go in as there is a fierce gun battle that is underway. Military intelligence sources have confirmed to Headlines Today that there could in fact be multiple attacks, not just on military positions, but also civilian targets before the next phase of the Jammu and Kashmir elections. 2 terrorists have so far been killed, and but there could be more than one group out to target the elections. That is the latest that we are in fact getting in on this big developing story that we're tracking from poll-bound Jammu and Kashmir. A fire has also broken out inside the camp area after the attack, but fire tenders cannot enter because there is a fierce gun battle that is still going on. Deputy Editor Shiv Arur, who's tracking all the latest developments on this story, is joining us live. Shiv, what's the latest update?
Rishika, the figures, we're getting official figures now from the army, and the figures are different from what has been reported by ANI earlier. It's 5 personnel who've been killed, not 7.
Right.
First of all, it's 1 army officer, 2 jawans, and 2 Jammu and Kashmir policemen who've made the supreme sacrifice. They've been martyred in this operation. 2 terrorists are also believed to be killed, but even this fact is conflicting because there are some reports that suggest that 3 terrorists have been killed, some that say that 2 terrorists have been killed.
Right.
Army yet to confirm that precise figure, but this operation may be winding to a close soon because backup units have arrived in this particular area. As our correspondent Shujaul Haq has reported, this is a field ordnance depot. There is a depot as part of this army camp. It's the 31 field regiment in Uri of Baramulla sector. It's a forward area, very, very sensitive area. The possibility of explosions as well is extremely real. But at this point of time, it's already been a major strike. 5 security personnel killed. Another important point to point out, Rishika, is that the army men who've been killed in this attack were actually killed. They were actually part of the quick reaction team that has been deployed by the camp, to cut off the terrorists, from wreaking any more damage. This is after they'd been spotted. This is after, intelligence had been gathered about their precise whereabouts when this QRT was deployed, and that's where the casualties actually happened. So it remains to be seen whether, the army was actually caught off guard, because if they were caught off guard, it's an extremely, extremely serious issue. It's a well-guarded area. There was already intelligence about the possibility of such daring strikes on sensitive locations. So where did the gaps actually take place?
Right, clearly, Shivan, this is something that will in fact dominate the discussions between the Army Chief and the Prime Minister today. The Army Chief is likely to meet the Prime Minister to brief him on the latest on the security situation in the state of Jammu and Kashmir.
That's right, Rishika. It was a scheduled meeting. It was supposed to, it had already been decided that this meeting would happen even before this terrorist attack. In fact, we'd reported it yesterday as well. But remember that Prime Minister Modi will be in Srinagar on December the 8th. That's Monday, for his campaigning for the Phase 4 of the elections, which goes to the polls on the 14th of December. Now, the Prime Minister will receive full details of the entire security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, all aspects of it, including the recent terror attacks. And given what's happening as we speak in Uri, Rishika, obviously the Army Chief will be expected to provide the very latest on what happened here. Was there a lapse in security? Was there an intelligence failure? One Army officer and 2 jawans have been killed. That's an expensive price to pay, for letting your guard down. And having visited these forward areas, I can tell you, Rishika, that these are extremely secure locations. It is enormously difficult for terrorists to even imagine, infiltrating camps of this kind. So, if that has indeed happened, the precise modalities of, what they've managed to do is still sketchy. But once we get those details, this is going to be an extremely serious day for the army.
Well, it is an extremely serious day, Shiv, and an extremely serious situation on the ground. 1 army officer, 2 army jawans and 2 Jammu and Kashmir police personnel have been killed. It is a complete security nightmare in the valley, given the fact that the 3rd phase of elections are to take place in this very Baramulla district on the 9th of December. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be visiting Srinagar this Sunday. So complete security nightmare. The modalities of what exactly happened and how these terrorists in fact managed to infiltrate such a high security zone, of course, remain to be investigated. Shiv Arur is going to continue to track the latest on this story for us. Thanks, Shiv, for joining us with that update.